At last, it's my turn. I'm happy to be here with you all today and to talk about the changing world of perioperative nursing. You don't need me to tell you how much nursing has changed just in the last 10 years, let alone the last 50 or 100 years. So we are going to take a look at, where's my down arrow here? Take a look at what has happened in nursing in the last 100 years and how our hospitals have changed over time. And what I hope happens is that you get a deeper appreciation for how distinguished our heritage is, where we started and how far we've come, and the fact that it could not have happened without you. It takes all of us together to make the changes and progress like we have done since we started. And then we're going to talk a little bit about grit. We've heard a lot of people talking about what grit really is today. We'll go into it just a little bit more because it's an interesting concept that seems to be taking on a little bit more. In the last week, I've heard Niall Horan. Who knows who Niall Horan is? Okay, well, he was with a group called the Fifth Dimension or something like that. He's talking about it. It's on Becker's Hospital Review, and all of a sudden people are talking about grit. So it's a good thing, and we'll go into a little bit about what that is. Now, in 1937, Lavinia Dock, one of our historical nurses, said that we really need to know what happened in the past because the past is a prologue of the future. And it will help you appreciate where you are now and where we possibly might be going in the future. In healthcare, it starts with a pledge. And the pledge goes back to when it really changed with Florence Nightingale. And then it continues with a commitment. When you choose your specialty in healthcare, whatever it is, then it's your commitment to advancing that part of healthcare that makes a difference. Okay, we're praying for the computer gods. So it begins with Florence Nightingale, it continues with us, it continues with you every single day in the operating room or wherever you happen to practice. Florence Nightingale was a woman of substance who decided in the middle 1800s that she was going to leave her comfortable life. You know the Florence Nightingale story. Went to the Crimean Peninsula and helped those people reduce infection rates, helped people and patients get better, and we're continuing that today. Now, one of the things that I get so excited about with history is that we can touch still today what is the foundation of the work that we do every single day. This is a recording from 1890, and it's the voice of Florence Nightingale. You may not be able to understand her. (1890) when I'm no longer even a memory. So, Florence Nightingale. So it's amazing to me that we can have the opportunity to hear what this woman has to say. And she thinks in 1890 that when she's not even a name or a memory, and we are still celebrating her grit. And think about what it took for her to leave her comfortable home at a time when women didn't do that, go across where there was a war and no comforts of home, and do the things that she did. It's absolutely incredible. And that's the heritage that we have in nursing, the ability to do things that will perpetuate us, our profession, and the work that we do into the future. It's a great gift. And if you look back at the Crimean War and the Civil War, they were fought roughly the same time. And it was a time when more people died from infection than from the wounds that they got in battle. And it was actually the birth of modern medicine. And it's at a time when surgeon skills and anesthesia skills really increased because of what they were doing in the tents really close to the battlefield. And there weren't really any organized nursing groups then. And if people decided they wanted to be a nurse, what they did was call themselves a nurse. And a family in Georgia would travel up to wherever their battalion was fighting in the north, and the same with the people from the north coming south to take care of their people. So it really was at a time of the medical Middle Ages, and it's only been since that point in time that we've started to see such great progress made to the point where we can do things that we are today. Florence Nightingale wrote the preeminent text on nursing in 1859, Notes on Nursing. I was AORN's president a long time ago, 2000, 2001, and that was my gift from the board to me, was an 1859 edition of Florence Nightingale's Notes on Nursing. So it is a prize, and it is something that I cherish and hope that you will be able to develop for and continue the appreciation. It took a little bit for nurses to start writing books. Nicholas Senn wrote the first book that I could find on operating room nursing, A Nurse's Guide for the Operating Room. He's from Chicago, Nicholas Senn of the Senn Retractors. So in the beginning, it was the doctors telling us, you know, this is good nursing practice. Then comes along a lady by the name of Amy Armour Smith. Amy was from Canada, came down to New York, worked in right outside the New York area, and wrote a book called Operating Room Technique, 1916. And you can still find those books. I've got one, and it's wonderful to read the stuff and hear what they had to say. Now, the one that is still pertinent to us today is the 1943 Edith Alexander's Operating Room Technique. And it's Jane Rothrock, who is the editor of that today. Remember the name Edith Alexander, because I have a tape that I also think is her voice, but it's what they were doing at that period of time that makes it possible for us to do what we're doing today. Now, in the early days of surgery, people that could afford it had surgery at home. You didn't go to hospitals because hospitals were places where people went to die, and they were just filled with germs. So if you needed to have surgery, and this is an actual picture of an operation in 1870, everybody would come to your home. That's where you would have surgery. No organized nursing groups at this period in time, but we quickly started to change. Lister's introduction of antiseptic surgery is what really changed the whole landscape of surgery, and it changed the landscape of how nurses became perioperative nurses as well. Okay, let's see. They had operating coats, and they would walk around with blood on their coats and on their hands. They didn't wear gloves, no mask, any of that stuff. And they would go from patient to patient and from surgery to surgery, and it was just spreading everything. So it was really innovative for Lister to come up with this antiseptic surgery. But think about what it would have been like. No air conditioning, no electricity, but you've got that constant mist of carbolic acid spraying over the patient and over you as well. I can't even imagine what it would be like to breathe that. So here is a little bit further along, 1889. It's dramatic. Now, it took a while for gloves to catch on. And originally, it was just the assistants who wore them. When surgeons first started wearing gloves, they liked the tactile feel of being able to feel the patient's own tissue. And they would wear like gloves on 2 fingers. If you look back in historical archives, you can see all different kinds of things. One of the things that I sort of have to question on this particular little vignette about what happened in the past is Caroline Hampton. This is Caroline Hampton. Caroline Hampton was a nurse from Columbia, South Carolina. She grew up in the South. So in 1885, and this is a journey that I'd like to do myself, just to get a feel for what it was like. Caroline Hampton took a train from Columbia, South Carolina up to New York City and enrolled in nursing school in New York City in 1885. Can you imagine what that journey was like? She graduated from the New York School of Nursing in 1888. Then she went to Baltimore and was the first operating room supervisor at Johns Hopkins, which is where she met William Halstead. Now, I think that, all right, a lot of you worked in the operating room for a long time. So when's the last time, and I don't mean to disparage anybody at all, but when's the last time a surgeon came up to you and said, "You look really tired. Is there something I can do for you today?" I mean, it does not happen. So I started looking back at Caroline Hampton's life. She wore gloves when she was gardening, and her home is up in Columbus, South Carolina. So I contacted all sorts of people. I got stories from relatives that have been passed down. She wore gloves when she was gardening. So the question in my mind is, whose idea was the gloves? I don't question the fact that Halstead did call Goodyear Rubber Company. It's well documented historically, but I got a feeling that Caroline at least entertained the possibility, had suggested, I need gloves, like when I garden. That makes more sense to me than all of a sudden Halstead saying, oh, we got to get those gloves on those hands. So Caroline Hampton, I think, is a nurse who changed history. It was her need to protect her hands, which ended up protecting the patient. And I got to tell you, just from looking at her journey from South Carolina up to New York and then down to Baltimore, the woman had grit. She had to have done the things that she did. One of the other things that I did was contact the archives, where it's New York Presbyterian Weill Cornell Medical Center now. And they sent me her class schedule. She had been in the operating room prior to going to Baltimore. So she knew what was going to be involved in it. And I just really feel in my heart that it was a collaboration and not just somebody deciding that she needed to wear gloves. So think about it. Now, when did you first hear about grit? My first interaction with grit was probably the book that came out in 1968 and the movie with John Wayne that was remade a few years ago. But grit is a concept that you have chutzpah, you have the will within you to do whatever needs to be done. And I think I'm a person with grit because I don't mind doing the work to accomplish the task that I need to have done. And if it's a path that I see that I want to take, I remember when I was in the 8th grade, and Holly's still here, we went to the same high school at different times. Anyway, in the 8th grade, say again? A few years apart. So I went, it was Mr. Alexander who was our principal, and I noticed toward the end of the 8th grade, the principal was the one who was selecting the cheerleaders. So I thought about it, and one day I went to Mr. Alexander's office and I knocked on the door, and I said, Mr. Alexander, I want to be a cheerleader. And so it was like a couple of months. They always waited till the last day of school. And so on the last day of school, we're sitting in class, and Mr. Alexander comes on the PA system and he says, we're going to announce the new cheerleaders for next year. And so there were 3 names, and mine was the last one he called. So, I mean, I think of my 13-year-old self having the guts, or the whatever you want to call it, to go knock on his door and ask for what I wanted, that ended up being successful. That to me is the definition of grit. Now you got to follow through on the work. You can't just get something. You have to work for it, and then you have to continue to work for it. And that is, to me, the definition of grit. In modern day, there is a woman by the name of Angela Duckworth, and she does the TED Talks. She was a math teacher teaching high school math. And so she started to look around at her students, and she was trying to figure out which ones are successful and why. And so she decided to go back to school. She got her PhD and then wrote this book called Grit, The Power of Passion and Perseverance. And to me, power and perseverance is what totally embodies nursing and anybody who works in healthcare, because you need that power and perseverance just sometimes, as our previous speaker was talking about, just to get through the day. So she looked, who is successful and why? Is it talent or is it effort? And what Angela Duckworth found out in the studies that she's done, and she does TED Talks, and she's really, really a good speaker, is that passion and perseverance count more than just pure talent. Talent plus effort equals skill. Skill plus effort equals achievement. And that's what we're after. We're after to be able to achieve things. One of the messages in the book, Brett, and I have a copy of it down here, is I may not be the smartest person in the room, but I will be the one who works the hardest. And I feel that way. And then when you get knocked down, you're gonna get knocked down. Whether you have power and perseverance to get up and brush yourself off and start it again, it is representative of what grit really is. Now, let's look at that in terms of what these operating room nurses did in 1949. January 28th, 1949, 17 OR supervisors in New York City got together and decided to create an organization. Their original, and it's in our archives, their original purpose was to pool knowledge and exchange ideas. Let's see if I can do this. Okay, this one's Edith Alexander. She's considered to be the founder of AORN. Lots of other people why does that not work? A little pointer.
Use your mouse and point.
Okay, so the other one up here is Charlie Ryle. Does anybody remember or have ever heard of Charlie Ryle before? And then this lady right back here. Okay, when you start, her name right back here is Carrie Marshall. If you look at some of these older pictures of the beginning of AORN, Carrie Marshall is in all of them. She's not one who ever ran for office in AORN or served on the board, but she is considered to be a founding member. I haven't been able to find anything else about her. So somebody please go find something about Carrie Marshall. Let's find out what her story is. What is it that led her to join those 17 people in New York City to form an organization? But they all had grit. They all contributed to the organization as we know it today. Now, from 1949 to 1952, the idea of an association was an idea whose time had come, because 1952, we had 30 chapters that had started in New York City and had spread all across the United States. Now think about it, before cell phones, before the jet airplanes when you can easily ride around, but people were wanting to organize, they wanted to get together, they wanted to pool their knowledge and educate each other for better patient care, an idea whose time had come. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you go back 2 slides? I have an interesting slide next to that picture. The one that you were talking about with Karen Marshall.
Carrie? Yeah.
So, funny story about this picture is that they're actually at Davis and Gay.
Davis and Gay. Yep, they're at Davis and Gay.
The guys from Davis and Gay,
Charlie Ryle. Yep.
Actually got called to go to Chicago.
Yep.
I put my presentation.
Yep.
Got called to Chicago to explain to the American College of Surgeons why the company was supporting a quote-unquote splinter group of nurses who were rising above their
station. Yep. Yep. That is in Joan Driscoll's book. Joan Driscoll's one of the ones who have taken the time to document what our history is, but that's exactly right. And that's a story that I'm going to show you a film clip a little bit later of Charlie, and I think he tells that story in his, I don't have it today, but in that. So yeah, I mean, they had a lot of people coming together that represented the power and the persuasion of organizing nurses from all across the United States to band together to create an association. They had the first national conference in 1954. It took 5 years to have the first national conference. They didn't expect that many people to come and be part of that first conference, the first Congress, which is what we used to call it. But they had 1,700 people and 300 people show up, 1,700 nurses and 300 guests. My only question is, who were the 300 guests? I don't see any notation anywhere of that. But there's Carrie Marshall again. And then the guy standing up, the first one on your right, that's Charlie Rydell. So Charlie helped promote the growth of AORN in the early days and help us become what we are today through his power and perseverance and his belief in us. And when he talks about how much he loved nurses, I believe that he did, and I think the nurses loved him as well. So these ladies, all of these ladies, in my opinion, had grit, 17 founding members of AORN. Now this is Charlie. This is a film clip. I don't know whether you have ever heard about it before or not, but at the same time, when Edith Alexander produced or wrote this book, there was a companion film that was produced at the same time. And so the nurses could get a film and get Edith Alexander's book, and that is how they taught perioperative nursing. Now, with this film clip, this was a presentation to New York City in the 90s, I think. The film clip that I want you to look at with this was from the 1950s. So remember the pictures from the 1800s and late 1700s, and then look at this picture from around 1950 and see what a difference nurses made in the way nursing was practiced in the operating room. This is an old one. It was approved by the American College of Surgeons. Reusable. Now, when I went to work in the operating room at Emory, right out of nursing school in 1975, we were still using cloth packs and cloth gowns. We had already gone to disposable gloves, but the cloth and everything stayed for a long time. And I remember what it was like when we went from cloth gowns to disposable gowns. And the surgeon would come in, I'd put a disposable gown on him, and I remember the number of surgeons who would just step back and let that gown fall on the floor because they were not going to wear a disposable gown. So think about what would happen now if you tried to put on a cotton gown to a surgeon. So progression and advancement take place over time. It doesn't happen quickly, but eventually everybody catches on and buys into the fact that we are progressing and making things better for the patient. So she had grit. I think that's Edith Alexander's voice on that film clip. And she's one that that I haven't been able to find out much about her either, except for the fact that what she did in 1943 is still influencing what we do in the operating room today. Okay, Charlie, we don't want to see you again. Okay, now AORN was not established until 1957 at the 4th Congress in Los Angeles. And that's a lot of words. You can see these in AORN journals. Pick all those things out and look at them individually, but it's still the same. Pulling together and sharing knowledge is what we wanted to do by forming the community that is a nationwide community of perioperative nurses. Those ladies had grit. I don't see Carrie Marshall in that, but I do see some of our other AORN people that were around at that time that some of us got to know. Now, Atlanta chapter was one of the early chapters. Atlanta chapter formed in 1957. So far, I've only been able to identify 2 people, but these were nurses from all of the hospitals that were in the Atlanta area in 1957. Margaret Fowler Panter, who later on was the operating room director at DeKalb General, and then Millie Callahan. So those 2 people I knew. These are the founders of Atlanta AORN, which is one of the reasons that we in the Atlanta area want to hang on to that chapter, but also make sure that we have that community, not only just here in the Atlanta area, but across the state, to help us provide better patient care across the spectrum of perioperative nurses. Okay, so it's not wanting to go. One of the things that has struck me as I've looked at AORN over the years is how we grew. And we talked about we had progressed from 30 chapters across the U.S. in just a short period of time. But this shows how we have grown over the years. Now, I called Lisa Wyatt or emailed Lisa Wyatt last week, and I said, Lisa Wyatt, what's our membership numbers now? She's the one who gave me the 44,000. Darlene said this morning that it was 45,000. But what catches my eye here are the number of chapters. So we're from a high of about 380 chapters down to about 200 chapters. And I think that, number one, that represents opportunity. There's opportunities for us to find better ways to bond together, because I think it does result in better patient care. And we see our candidates that for national office that took the time to come down and interact with you and connect with you. That is such an important thing to do, because these ladies, and we didn't have any gentlemen with us today, they're not here representing AORN. They are representing you to AORN in Denver, because just like all politics is local, all healthcare is local. What you are doing here every single day feeds up into what the national standards should be. So opportunity there to make a difference in connecting with the entire universe, because what I found is there's about a pool of about 200,000 perioperative nurses across the country. Now, to communicate with each other was one of the core values of perioperative nursing and AORN. This is our first nursing journal, produced in 1960. They were little bitty journals, and we're up now to this huge journal that we get every month, which is peer reviewed and based on scientific information. So it tells you what the best practices are based on the science and not just what you might or might not believe. The recommended practices are another way that we've changed the landscape of delivering health care. The first recommended practice, 3 pages. And you can find that in the AORN journal. I have my own. This is 1978, the little bitty one which I ordered, and I'm sort of, I guess, a pack rat. So I still have this from 1978. And then 1983. Who's actually seen a hard copy of the current recommended practices? It's about 1,000 pages. I swear that thing weighs a ton. But you can access them in so many different ways. And it's through the guidelines and through the journal and through the publication and through the efforts to connect all across this country that have made AORN and our organization what it is. Current guidelines, about 1,100 pages, but it's the number of scientific-based guidelines that are available to you to use every single day. And it's because those 17 nurses wanted to get together and pool knowledge. So the past still affects us today and will continue to affect us in the future. 1918 operating room, a picture from Cincinnati. This is one that, I mean, when I walk in and I see that today, I shudder to think, how in the world do you do it? I don't think I ever worked in an operating room that looked like that, but my hat's off to you that you can do it and then navigate all of the things that you have to do in providing that care. So you have grit every day. I know you do. Okay, now I am really, really excited to be able to share this with you. How many of you knew or had ever heard that we have an AORN song? I see Daphne. All right. Now this is a sheet. Okay. This happened, I think, right about the mid 1960s is when, and so the song sounds like, I'm gonna play it for you in just a minute. This is the sheet music. I've had the sheet music since 2000. And in looking at things in this particular year, I went about the task of trying to find a record of it. And we actually found a record. I have the record. I ordered it off eBay. And I swear to God, I took it to a place in Roswell that transfers vinyl to digital. And for the first time since I heard it, which might be the first time since the mid 60s, we're going to hear the AORN song. Maybe. No. Help. It's not doing it. You got to hear this. I want you to hear it. Huh?
Is it saved in that folder?
Yep.
Okay, then we'll go ahead and go that way. Just minimize that.
It is it's not in here. Oh, there, no, that's not.
Maybe it's on the flash drive.
No. Oh God.
Any of these? Or that's your flash drive. That's everything on it.
Oh. Okay, I have told you a lie. Wait a minute. What is? Oh, that's the skewer thing. Now I'm gonna have to go to my house. It's in my car. Okay, so the gods did not smile on me today, but it was a song that was written by a guy who lived in New York, new hardware detective, and he actually worked on Broadway. He wrote the song. It was a song that I think was commissioned by Purdue Frederick. I wrote Purdue Frederick, and they have no record of it. They don't know anything about it. And so it's just out there in the ether now. And it's to the sound of I swear I'm gonna go get it in my car while Stuart does his thing. And it ends with these hands we serve humanity. It is so cool, and I'm really sorry that the gods aren't smiling at me today with the technology. Okay. All right, association growth, we have those. Oh, I'm really having a hard time. You better stay up here with me. It's not my computer.
Oh,
Yeah, just one, that one came over here and then,
and then we're on this side.
yeah. I swear I do better than this sometimes. Okay,
I don't know why it.
none of us know. Gremlins, we have gremlins. So people say to me, why AORN? And one of the things that I can point to about why our organization is so important, not just to me, but to all of us, is what we were able to do here in Georgia and 13 other states have been able to do, is pass smoke legislation. This is something that is nurse-led, comes from the ground up, and every state where it's been done, nurses go to their legislators and they say, this is enough. We need to do something about this. So we did it in Georgia. Okay, these just aren't advancing at all. The slides are not advancing.
Click on the screen.
I did. I did.
There, now it should work.
It's not. Oh, okay.
There you go.
I apologize. So as I said, 14 states now. I called Jennifer Pennick and I said, what's new? There is a bill on the governor's desk in California. All he's got to do is sign it. Then we can turn California from blue to green, which that would be absolutely fantastic. How many times in your life do you get the chance to actually make a difference about how care is delivered every single day in operating rooms all across the country? We did this, and I'm hoping that all of the states will be able to do this. Why AORN? Because your focus is on the patient, and that's where it should be. It is a special gift for you to be able to put your hands on that patient. AORN's focus is you, to give you the tools that you need to provide the best evidence-based care that you can. Together, we are better. Together, we have a voice. Individually, not so much, but together, we are all gritty. And my question to you today is, how gritty are you? So we've got some little things that we're passing around that you can figure out how gritty you are. We're not going to do that today, but this is off Becker's Hospital Review. If you want to go to work for Becker's, then these are their steps for being gritty. Show up as your best self daily. Strive for great, not just good enough. Be resilient and overcome challenges. Like our first speaker said this morning, when you fall down, you have to get up and keep trying. Show endless enthusiasm and energy, and sometimes that is really hard. And then take the initiative. Be that 13-year-old girl who goes and knocks on her principal's door and says, we need to do this. So we can do it. We're better together. And so let's see how gritty we can all be together. Leah Curtin, which is one of our icons in nursing, says it better than I ever could say it. We in nursing have a tradition with a future. The tender, loving care of human beings will never become obsolete. And I believe that. I believe that you will always need that contact of nurses, no matter what we see in the future. So one person is powerful, and that's what I want you to understand, if we can play this, is the power of one. So embrace your power, know that one person is powerful, and that together we are more powerful than we are individually. So thank you all very much.